The headlines on Breakingviews today. 3 changes in monetary policy at the Bank of England when Mark Carney takes the helm. And the ghost of Deutsche Past from former CEO Joseph Ackerman. With me now to discuss these stories is Reuters Breakingviews assistant editor Chris Hughes. Chris, let's start with the Bank of England and Carney. What are these 3 changes in monetary policy going to be then?
Well, I think with Mark Carney what you're going to see is more clarity over the future direction of interest rates. I mean, what we've seen with Mervyn King and actually other Bank of England governors, this sort of studied ambiguity where they kind of want to keep markets guessing, and King is famously quite wary of forecasting. I mean, no wonder, because he often gets it wrong. But Mark Carney is in more of a sort of American tradition where he's not afraid at all of making forecasts. In fact, at the beginning of the crisis in 2009, Bank of Canada was very explicit about its policy on rates, giving very clear guidance that it wanted to keep rates low for long, even sort of indicating that the present rate would be kept until sort of the middle of the following year. Very detailed stuff. You know, you don't get that right now from the Bank of England. So that's probably the first key change. And then you've got the question of how is he going to run the Monetary Policy Committee? Now, Mervyn King has actually been quite comfortable with being, in the minority on voting there. I mean, he's often been, in 4, outvoted by 5 on various policy matters. It's not clear, actually, that Mark Carney is going to feel comfortable with that. And I mean, it's a very sort of UK thing to have the governor outvoted and everyone go, well, he's just one of 9.
I mean, what I'm hearing is that Carney is a much more collegiate style, has a much more collegiate style of management, which would suggest he would be comfortable being in a minority if he was outvoted, unlike King, who we're led to believe is more sort of.
Yeah, I mean, you can interpret that collegiate style in various ways. Would it be the case that, I mean, I don't think it follows from that necessarily that he's going to be comfortable as the governor of the central bank actually being seen to be outvoted. It may be that he drives it. Well, he's a pretty self-assured fellow. I mean, he may be quite comfortable just with his own opinion. But the question is, does Carney maybe drive the committee more towards consensus around his own position, perhaps? Does he maybe have a quiet word if members are often you get members making policy announcements, outside the context of the committee. I mean, we're not saying that he's going to be sort of, clamping down on dissent as such, but it's probably there's going to be a different dynamic there in those committee meetings.
And very quickly, the third change.
Third change is on QE. We just detect that Carney is probably a little less pro money printing than Mervyn King has been. He's clearly very wary of the effect on the exchange rate. Now, you might say that money printing that depresses your exchange rate, can be a good thing if it helps stimulate your exports. But it can cause friction. It causes friction. You can have it can escalate to currency wars.
And of course, he's the one who's going to have to unwind it, probably.
Yeah. So it seems like he's quite wary of getting into that kind of situation where he's having to defend a policy which could be interpreted as kind of currency hostility.
Okay, let's move on to Deutsche Bank. Joseph Ackerman is having a pop at his successor, Anshu Jain, for not attending LIBOR hearings. I mean, isn't this a case of the pot calling the kettle black?
Well, it's a long-standing tradition at Deutsche, sadly, that the previous management isn't afraid to start attacking their successors. We're seeing it again here. Obviously, Joseph Ackerman himself was a subject of attacks from Rolf Breuer way back when, so he knows what it feels like, and now he's dishing it out a bit. I have to say, while it is a bit unseemly, Joseph Ackerman does have a bit of a point here. It does look like a bit of an own goal for Deutsche not to be sending Anshu Jain, its co-CEO, to this hearing today on LIBOR. I mean, clearly it's not clear whether actually Anshu Jain was directly summoned, and it's not actually it's always the case that banks do send their CEOs. So there is a precedent for not sending a CEO, but in this case, Andrew would probably be better off just, taking the flak and going, being seen to take the questions, have a chance to clear up any doubts about how Deutsche handled its own LIBOR submissions. Given that he's a relatively new CEO and still trying to sort of build up, public support, it would have been better on this occasion just to sort of go for it.
Okay, well, we'll see if he's summoned again and if he does actually show up. Chris, thank you very much. That's all for now, and that was, of course, Reuters Breaking Views' Chris Hughes. For more agenda-setting financial insight, watch our US Breaking Views show every day at 12:30 Eastern, 17:30 British Summer Time. I'm Jamie McGeever. This is Reuters.